Dear Master Zhengyan, dear brothers and sisters, good afternoon, I believe it's afternoon. I'm very grateful to have this opportunity to share with everyone. The topic that I want to talk about is remaining unaffected by conditions. I first want to wish you all good health and know whether you're all safe. It seems that often these days when we meet each other, we greet each other by saying, "Are you okay? Are you safe? Are you healthy?" This is actually a form of blessing from deep in our heart. We all need to be safe and healthy. I didn't know what I was going to share with everyone today, but of course, we know that there was recently a train accident in Taiwan. So I'm going to share about this with everyone. But I first want to apologize, especially to the translation team, because I'm serving in the kitchen right now. So when I heard that I was going to share, I first heard about April 1st, but I was very busy. But I was so happy to have the opportunity to share with all of you bodhisattvas. So I just agreed without thinking much about it. But then the next day, the train accident occurred. So I didn't finish my PowerPoint until yesterday because we've had so much work to do in the kitchen. So I want to apologize to the translation team. You may be a little nervous because you never saw my PowerPoint until very recently. So I want to repent to everyone. But when I was making this PowerPoint, I was thinking about what is the state of COVID in the US. I didn't have much time to look into the state of things. When I saw this piece of news, I was deeply touched. There's so many people each day who are still falling ill with this virus. There's so many people suffering. We also saw a piece of news about the violence in Myanmar. So many people have been injured and killed. And then in Taiwan, although Taiwan is safe from the COVID pandemic, we have all been hearing about the train accident on the Tairoko line. 50 people were killed and over 200 were injured. So I've been thinking about how when the four elements are causing disasters or when human-caused disasters happen, we see a lot of numbers of people who are killed, but all of these represent people who are suffering in their hearts. If you look at these pictures, this is from East Africa. These children, when I look at these pictures, I remember there was one day I was making a report to Master, and when I finished, Master said to everyone, "Bodhisattvas, you must open your eyes of compassion. We know that all sentient beings are suffering right now, in every place, all around the world. So we need to open up our eyes of compassion. To be a bodhisattva, when we see suffering, we cannot bear it. We cannot bear to let sentient beings suffer. So If it were us, would we be able to withstand this suffering? We cannot bear to let others go through this. And if we can't bear it, what should we do? We feel suffering along with these sentient beings. Master can understand the suffering of these sentient beings, so she feels their suffering as well. With this train accident, whether those who passed away or those who were injured and still here, whether they were affected mentally or physically, whether it was their families, everyone is suffering, and Master can feel all of this. What if it were us? We also cannot bear it, but what should we do? We must take action. This is our method. Not only do we give material assistance, but we also need to give support. We need to help transform people's hearts. We make sure that their life necessities are taken care of, but we also give them spiritual support. We want them to be able to help themselves, so we need to help them first. So when the Taroko train accident happened, did Siji take action? We can see these photos were really shocking to people. How about this photo? The train accident occurred in the morning at 9:28 a.m. By 12:30, we had already prepared 600 meal boxes. Starting on April 2nd until April 9th. We finished on April 9th. Over those few days, the kitchen created over 3,000 meal boxes to serve, including bread and other items that the Dharma masters made. How about Siji? How did Siji mobilize? Actually, we weren't mobilized. Every person took action themselves. As soon as we heard that this accident had happened, we all right away went into action. Because I was the window for the kitchen, right away at 10 a.m., I received the information. I received the information at 10 a.m. from the hospital. They were so busy over there. So they asked us for 100 meal boxes to start with. But I thought, oh, no problem, just 100 meal boxes? We do this every day because of the volunteers who come and go at the abode. So the Dharma masters are used to preparing these kinds of meal boxes. This kind of request was no problem for us, and it was only 100 of them. And because it was a holiday anyway, and we had already prepared food, because it was a holiday, we had prepared more food, so it would be no problem. But at that time, I didn't really understand what had happened. I just knew we needed to have 100, and I thought, no problem. But gradually, we heard the full report. Gradually, it increased to 200 meal boxes, 300. And then I understood that the train had had an accident. So I thought, 200 meal boxes. I had to come up with some method to do this. Then another 10 minutes later, they said, we need 600. So then I was very worried. How could we come up with 600 meal boxes? At that time, I just thought, where are they going to come from, all these meal boxes? It's already 10 a.m. Just at that time, we were preparing for lunch. And I had to make sure that lunch was served as regular. So where would these meal boxes come from? So I had to figure out a way to put these together without affecting the normal lunch service at the abode. This was a huge challenge. But let me share with you. So at that time, strangely enough, they had made some extra noodles. We were planning to serve a kind of spaghetti. So we had made some extra noodles, and we had made too much. He said, oh no, I prepared too much. What should I do? And I said, oh, don't worry. We'll just use it again at dinner time. Well, let's put it in the fridge and we'll use it again for dinner. But so originally I was worried about being able to use up all this food, but as soon as I received the news, I knew that we would use it for the meal boxes instead. Everything that we had in the fridge that could be used, we took it out. Because we had to come up with 600 meal boxes within 1 hour and a half, and we needed a lot of manpower. So they asked, how did we organize having people come to help? I tell you, we didn't mobilize anyone. How did we come up with these 600 meal boxes? Because at that time, as soon as the Dharma masters knew about the news, many of them came to the kitchen to ask, what can I do to help? Everyone came and asked, what can I do to help? So each one coming in to ask, all of a sudden, when I was still trying to come up with the plan, they all came to help. And then we had to realize, oh, where are all the actual boxes to put the meal boxes in? So we had to go into the storage room to go and take them out. But we couldn't just use them. We had to wash them and disinfect them and dry them. So we needed so many people to do these different tasks, and all of these Dharma masters appeared just at the right time. So really, I didn't mobilize people. They just came, and more came to help out.
So as the volunteer received the news, they started to come in, and they were asking where they could help. And a lot of them they came in and found things to do without even asking. So everyone, even without coordinating, find their spot and was put into action. And within an hour, we were able to prepare the dishes and the meal boxes. So it was a magical moment. Now, talk about preparations. The abode masters naturally would prepare some extra because it is very common to have visitors to the abode, and it would be very common that we have some extra guests who's staying over. And that always happens last minute. So we're usually prepared for that. But also because of this training, how that we need to add extra tables on a daily basis. And even as we're preparing these extra meal boxes, we have to keep the same composure, the same calmness as we would if we were to have them joining us for lunch in the abode. So some of you may ask, how do we plan for these meals? Well, we like to make sure that the meal is colorful and full of love, and that it would be enticing to their appetite. Especially now that Master has been asking everyone to adopt a vegetarian diet. So how to get people who are not naturally vegetarians to want to eat a vegetarian meal? Then typically we would prepare a minimum of 7 dishes and more than 5 colors, so to have a complete nutrients. And we also have to organize them well and make it presentable. And we have to fill it with our love. So the abode masters preparing a meal box has been a very important training for all of us. Now, some people may ask, so for the next couple of days, how do we prepare for the need? Well, the important thing is the important thing is to get ready, regardless of how many people need our support. So I'm very grateful to have the abode masters with me because of their cooperation, how they were able to work together and were able to pull off a feat such as this. The abode has been the strongest support for Tzu Chi and will continue to be the backup for all those who are suffering. Now, because we're so focused in the kitchen, we don't receive news from the front line. So sometimes we don't really know who actually gets to enjoy the meal boxes until we see pictures such as this. This is one of the emergency responders who were enjoying our meal. And everyone who had it said it was a very delicious, fulfilling meal box. So it is part of our efforts so that we can provide to these people that when they are busy saving lives or dealing with other incidences, that we could fill their stomach and they don't need to worry about food and have the strength. So all that started with this heartwarming meal box, and that's the secret to Chi's getting into the heart. Now, working in the kitchen, I myself is very inexperienced. So taking on this responsibility has been a very nervous experience for me. After spending 365 days in the kitchen, you gain a lot of experience, you see a lot of different things. So this meal box may seem simple. It actually takes a lot of manpower and a lot of thought. But as soon as we received the news, we started preparing. So every single dish in there were prepared after the news happened. So when everyone got the box, it is definitely still hot because it is freshly made and filled with the love of every volunteer, every abode master who has taken part into it. Usually, whenever we finished the cooking, we presented it. We will get some feedback. Some people say it will be really good. Some people will say really salty. Everyone has a different opinion. So being the window to the kitchen team, I received these news, but at the same time, I'm also very grateful for everyone. And as I said, as I take on this position, I will hear from these feedbacks. But working in the kitchen, I can see the energy radiating from each of these meals. Because the person preparing it may be different. And every time we cook it, it could be a different combination. And everyone may interact differently, so have different opinions. Whether it is between the volunteers or the abode masters, they will radiate different kind of energy. So as long as the masters work together, then every dish that they present, I will get a very positive feedback. And everyone would say it's really delicious. But if there is some friction between the team in the kitchen, or something that didn't go so well, then I will receive negative feedbacks. People will say, oh, it's too bland or too salty. So before, I always hear from Master Zhen that who share about the energy in the team. And I never quite get it until I work in the kitchen, because everything we do, everything that we create, it combines the energy of the efforts we put in there. So the rice boxes, because it is filled with the cooperative spirit of the volunteers, the abode masters, and everyone enjoyed it. So love and gratitude is the greatest energy, the greatest force of positive energy in the world. Because combined together, it can create very wondrous energy field. Now, getting curveballs has been a basic training for every spiritual cultivator or Tzu Chi volunteers. And that's been a specialty in Tzu Chi, because from these changes, from these variables, we learned about impermanence. And from the impermanence, we learn to keep our composure, to be calm. And when we're making these meal boxes, I have a lot of thoughts, and I really want to share with you. So as these messages, people were asked that they would ask for a meal box to be delivered at a certain time, and they were ask me what time we need to start preparing it. And my answer is always, I don't know. Because the time when I receive a message, maybe it could be different too. And I have to make sure that every dish is made fresh and ready to go as soon as they need to be prepared. So in the evening, I received a message asking for 135 boxes to be delivered by 5 o'clock. And when I received it, that was almost 4 o'clock because I usually check my message every 10 minutes. Now, this is only one location to the funeral homes. Next, we have a request for 139 and also 10 for the news centers. And these are not including the front lines, which could be more than 100 boxes. So when I received the message at 3:50 for 350 boxes, I haven't even started cooking yet. So when I received the message, I know immediately I need to get cooking. So all the above masters quickly jump into action. And within 10 minutes, we're able to prepare 7 dishes ready to be packed. So I remember to download this, to take a snapshot of this message. When I received the news by 4 o'clock, and the actual numbers by 4:10 in the afternoon, and in 15 minutes later, by 4:25, our boxes are ready to go. And I said, our team is truly wondrous because within 25 minutes, they were able to prepare 350 boxes. And it is truly unbelievable. But these unbelievable feats happened because everyone had a cooperative attitude. It wouldn't be possible without it. And everyone who got these boxes, they would have it hot in their hand and feel the warmth that we put in. So this image where I recorded is very moving from myself to me as well. And it reminded me of the 10 steps that in suffering, we train our compassion. And in the variable, ever-changing environment, it's a challenge to our wisdom. And that's everyone's wisdom, not just the above masters or those who are in the kitchen. And in difficulties, we sparks our resilience. I mean, having to prepare 350 boxes within 25 minutes. This is also where we could learn to practice our patience. Because among the mundane things, if we don't keep our patience if we don't keep our composure, you'll never be able to accomplish what's needed. But for the complicated things, we can also enjoy the positive aspects. Even as we're receiving news, we have to understand and imagine what these people would need. How do we judge our portions so that we can fill their stomach but without wasting them? So if we're able to take in the positive and to think and to understand the difficulties that everyone faces, then it will be difficult for us to accomplish this. And within the ideals, we learn to improve ourselves. On a daily basis, regardless of how many tables or rice boxes are requested, we would try to satisfy that need. And between working with other people, we learn to be grateful for each other. Without you, without them, without each of us, we're never able to get it together. And in the society, we have to learn to be peaceful. Because everyone who is taking care of others, caring others, that is to pacify the society. And we learn to nurture the earth. And we hope that we're able to alleviate disasters and sufferings throughout the world. So today, my topic is to be remaining unaffected by external situations, such as this rice box, that it would become a challenge for all of us. So, but as we encounter external circumstances, where does our afflictions, where does our negative energy, where does it come from? So how do we remain unaffected? Well, first we have to ask what are we affected? How are we afflicted by the circumstances? Where does it come from? And that's where we need to ponder. Master has said that whenever we encounter circumstances, we have to look into our heart. In order for us to be unaffected, we have to learn to know how we are affected. So we have to look within, to observe ourselves, to think, to observe. So this observation is we're observing what's external and also observing internally. So what are we observing externally? Well, Masters has reminded us that everyone should be a bodhisattva. And we have to listen to the calls for help. And if we hear it, we have to go and rush to help them. If we see them, we hear them, our hearts cannot bear to hear their suffering. So we immediately put into action to alleviate others. Whether it is a disaster like the train wreck or COVID-19, what our volunteers, what our volunteer bodhisattvas are doing across the world, isn't that answering the calls for help? But at the same time, we have to look within ourselves to learn to be calm, to take things lightly, because no matter what the situation throw at us, we can accept it joyfully. So whether it was yesterday or the day before when we wrap up this rescue effort, there were a lot of praises, positive feedbacks that was given to me. They would say how amazing we were to be able to provide the meals within this short amount of time. It's so unbelievable. So everyone who came into the abode were praising us. And I have to keep reminding myself what Master has taught us, reminded us, that when other people are praising me, I have to remind myself to shrink myself, to keep shrinking myself and not to be bloated, not to grow up our ego. So because that's the time when we have to be especially aware. If we can, like Master shared, if we can shrink ourselves that we could be put into anywhere and be fitting into the situation, in that case, we can and able to put into effect, in that case, then we are truly in our place, found our place. So this is something I've always been learning. So if you're continuously giving and working, it's best that you don't ask or look forward to other people's gratitude or praise, but rather we have to be mindful and remind ourselves that, and ask ourselves that, am I doing enough? Can we get the other people to join me, or other people's can other people feel my effort? Like Master shared that she stays calm when it's cold, even and in the heat of summer as well. And this is to be adaptable to regardless of the situation. Like myself, I am not a fan of the heat. When I'm working in the kitchen, I always thought that it's so hot. But whenever I took on the position, I never thought about the heat in the kitchen. I just thought that, oh, there's a need in the kitchen, so I can go. It's not a problem. So when I started my shift, it was in July, which is one of the hottest time in Taiwan. But in the kitchen, every day goes by so quickly because you're so busy and you're too busy to think about the heat or the atmosphere. I remember when I first started my kitchen duty, I remember that before I work in the kitchen, whenever I go back to the dormitory, I had to turn on 2 fans because it's so hot. I remember one day one of the abode master asked me, he's like, "Oh, have I practiced to the higher level? Have I advanced to a next level?" And I was puzzled. I wondered what was it asking. Well, the other master said, because I haven't turned on the fan since I got back from the kitchen. And then I realized, oh yeah, I haven't turned on the fan. And that's because the kitchen is really hot. So after you get out of the kitchen, then it's cool everywhere else. So I don't need a fan anymore. Whenever we feel hot or cold, a lot of times it is within ourselves. If you keep thinking that you're cold, if you keep thinking that you're hot, then naturally it makes the situation worse. But if you focus on what you're doing and not pay attention to what your bodily needs, as the time passes, you become used to the situation. So whether it is in heat or in cold, we have to maintain our composure and even as we're standing next to the stove, or if we have to go in and out of the refrigeration area, from cold to heat, this has always been a challenge for us. But how to remain calm, remain composed between these 2 temperature extremes, this is a homework for all of us. And every day as I spend time in the kitchen, it's an opportunity for me to practice. In Tzu Chi, we have to find peace among the activities. Even though the surrounding situation is constantly changing, but how to let ourselves, let our heart to remain calm, to remain steady, it's the most important. So we have to be a bodhisattva to save the others, but at the same time, practice enlightenment or practice composure within ourselves. So a poem often said that as the moon rises to the peak, all winds remain calm. So how do we get to that situation from a common person like us to train and reach the point of awareness? How do we practice calmness as well as awareness? Oh, this is what Buddha has been teaching us. What Buddha is teaching us is not in the numerous ways, but rather it is the direction. If we continue to practice on one direction, then we can receive a boundless benefit. And for Master, it's always been for Buddhism and for all sentient beings. For decades, a Dharma Master has always reminded herself to be aware and to be mindful that is she living for herself, that doing Tzu work has been a selfish intention. Like me, when I started, I didn't join them, but I didn't become a monastic immediately. I was a pure practitioner first when I first arrived in the abode. And throughout the years, and for other years, I had to find things to do. So when I first started, when I first returned to the abode, I often asked what I can do. And it's and people ask me, what am I doing here? Because I'm here to cultivate myself. And I would often say, oh, I can do documentation because I used to take pictures before when I was a commissioner. I'm also a hospital volunteer, so I can work in a hospital. But the abode masters didn't take into account of these things. They were asking what my employment, what my job was before. Oh, I said that I was in sales. I had a business. So when the abode masters So the abode master often said that, oh, because I had experience running a business, then I could help to promote the humanitarian the documentations. So my responsibility became to work in the bookstores, the Jing Si bookstore, to open up stores and to run the bookstores. And at first, I wasn't really finding it for me because my focus for coming back to the abode was to cultivate, to find peace, not to go out and do more business. So even though I wasn't feeling it, wasn't fully accepting it, I still took on the responsibility. So even though working in the bookstore has been an easy task for me, because it's things that this is what I'm used to do before. But the thing that I really dislike doing is to make money, because that's what a business was before I come back to the abode. But as we all know that the bookstore has been one of the source of income for the abode, has been support. So it's a very important position. So I had to go around Taiwan to check out the different stores. I spent about more than 200 days a year to visit the bookstores. And many times I will wake up where I am, or which Jing Si hall am I in. And I often ask myself that, is this really training for me? because as I spend so much time out of the abode, so even like the bookstore is not just in Taiwan, they were also in mainland China and as well. So I spent about 2 years.
When I was in mainland China, I spent about 2 years. One time, when I was returning to the abode, I told Master, I asked her if I could change my job because I felt that I was doing the same work that I used to do before I became a monastic. I couldn't get my mind around this. It seemed like I was always doing the same thing. And I worked in the bookstore for 5 years, so I asked Master if I could change jobs. I used the opportunity when I was making a report to ask Master this. Then the night before I was supposed to report, I saw a book. There was a famous master who said, he asked his master, can I change? And this master's teacher said, I was working in a bookstore before, and then when I came to the abode, I was doing the same work. And I felt this was the same story that applied to me. So when I read this story, in this story, the teacher said, I'll ask you something. Who are you doing this work for? And they said, oh, well, this job is for the sake of everyone in the abode. So isn't this work you're doing for the sake of all sentient beings, for the sake of the Dharma? Wouldn't it not matter what work you're doing as long as the intent is the same? So after I read this story, I felt very sad and I reflected on myself. When I came back to the abode to engage in spiritual practice, it was for the same intent, for Buddha's teachings for sentient beings. So no matter what work I do, isn't it the same? Does it really make a difference? So for Buddha's teachings for sentient beings, this is what I kept in my heart. So from that time on, no matter what I was asked to do, I felt it was all for Buddhist teachings for sentient beings. So it didn't matter. It doesn't matter what job. It doesn't matter what position, whether I go out to farm or work in the kitchen or whatever I'm doing, it's always for Buddhist teachings for sentient beings. So now I feel that my heart is very at peace and at ease no matter what I'm doing. So we always need to reflect on ourselves in our daily life. In whatever we are doing, however we deal with other people, we must keep reflecting on ourselves and ask ourselves, what are our minds doing? No matter. We must be steadfast spiritual practitioners. Life is full of suffering and impermanent, but when suffering manifests, we must take it as an opportunity to awaken and reflect on ourselves. And we must take advantage of this limited lifetime that we have to create value. We can see this little monk practicing Kung Fu. So the Dharma masters at the abode making these 600 these 600 meal boxes, they are like monks practicing Kung Fu. They are practicing spiritual Kung Fu. This is not about defending yourself. It's not about self-defense, but it's about taking care of everyone's hearts. It's about not letting circumstances affect our minds so that we are at peace no matter what is happening. So when we talk about being at peace and safe, there is peace in our environments and peace in our hearts. We see that there is so much going on in our society, so much instability and chaos. Actually, this is created by each person's heart. So if our hearts are at peace, then the world can be at peace. But if our hearts are not at peace, the world can never be at peace. So if our hearts are not at peace, our environments will constantly be affecting us. So in order for the world to be peaceful and harmonious, we need to first take care of people's hearts. We need to make sure that everyone has peace of mind. So whether we are volunteers or monastics, no matter what we are doing, we always need to be taking care of people's hearts. So when I think of this, I thought of this story. So there was a disciple who wanted to learn from Bodhidharma, but Bodhidharma wouldn't accept him as an disciple. So Sangguang, this monk, waited by his side for a long time. But Bodhidharma just didn't respond to him. In the end, this disciple cut off his own arm to manifest his determination. And so Bodhidharma turned to him and said, "What is it that you really want?" And he says, "I cannot reach peace of mind. Please help me, give me guidance." And Bodhidharma said, "Okay, take this mind of yours that isn't at peace and show it to me." And he said, at that time, I didn't understand what he meant by peace of mind. But when Shenguang heard this story, he had a great awakening. He said, "There's no way I can take out this mind that is not at ease." And Bodhidharma said, "Yes, exactly. There is no mind to put at ease." So when I came back to the abode as a Qing Shu Shi, as a pure practitioner, then I finally understood this story. So Master is asking us that we must be mindful. We must take care of our own minds and also make sure that we aren't suffering from greed or anger or ignorance. Then we can be at peace. We can have peace of mind. There are natural and man-made disasters that affect us. And if our minds are not at peace, we will be easily disturbed. So if we want the world to be at harmony and free of disasters, the only way is to take care of our hearts. We must put out the fires in our own hearts. And the only way to do this is with the water of the Dharma. We must put the teachings into practice so that we can eliminate our ignorance, greed, and anger. There's a saying in Buddhism, whatever conditions we face, whether adverse or beneficial, all of them are helpful for us in our spiritual practice. We face many challenges in life, but no matter which challenges appear, we must face them with gratitude. Each challenge is giving us an opportunity. Even if we don't deal with it well this time, we will have another opportunity to face this challenge. So we must be grateful for all of these opportunities, for giving us a chance to practice, to adjust our own minds, to transform our hearts. In English, we say spiritual practice. That's right. We need to practice this over and over. All of these things are teaching. They're actually teaching us. Whether things are helpful or not, they are all teaching us how to be better. So we need to be careful whatever conditions we face, we want to meet them with gratitude because we don't want to form negative connections, negative relationships with other people. If we don't allow our circumstances to affect us, then when we reflect we need to maintain peace of mind. And to do this, we need to reflect on ourselves. So I want to share one more thing with everyone. We must maintain a sense of joy in our hearts. Whatever kind of conditions we face, we want to bring joy into our hearts when we face them. So I think I have run out of time. I am very grateful for this opportunity. I really don't know what I have shared with you today, but I just sincerely want to say that in our spiritual practice, we must take care of our own habitual tendencies. We often look at others, but we must turn back and reflect on ourselves and take good care of our own hearts. We must understand what is going on in our own minds. When we understand our own minds, our own habits and habitual tendencies, then we will know how to engage in spiritual practice. How do we practice? If we can't reflect on ourselves, then we won't be able to practice. So I hope that you continue to go ahead diligently on this Bodhisattva path and with great sincerity, treat yourself and treat other people with joy. Then we can turn our afflictions into wisdom, into Bodhi. All it takes is for us to transform our thoughts, to turn our perspective around. Then we can all be at peace and be filled with joy. So this is my sharing today. Thank you all.
Thank you. Let us all show our appreciation for the Dharma Master. Next,